The notification appeared on my phone at 2:34 p.m. On a Thursday, family WhatsApp group, 23 members. My mother's message in all caps. Family gathering this Sunday, 4 p.m. Celebrating Amber's amazing news about her partnership. Everyone must come. No excuses. Amber, my older cousin, the family's shining star. The one who did everything by the book and made sure everyone knew it. I stared at the message from the back seat of a town car heading to a meeting with potential investors from Singapore. My executive assistant had blocked off my entire afternoon for this 3 weeks ago. Missing it wasn't an option. I typed back quickly. Can't make it. Prior work commitment. The responses flooded in within seconds. Mom, Riley, seriously? What could be more important than celebrating Amber's success? Aunt Patricia, your cousin worked so hard for this. The least you could do is show up. My brother Mason, I'm flying in from Calgary, and you can't drive 30 minutes? Priorities, Rye. Dad. Very disappointed. This is family. I turned my phone face down and stared out the window at Toronto's skyline. They'd made their decision about me years ago. Explaining wouldn't change anything now. Sunday came and went. While my family celebrated Amber's promotion to junior partner at her law firm in Oakville, I was in a boardroom negotiating terms for Arctic Bloom's Series C funding round. $270 million. Post-money valuation climbing to $2.1 billion. We were 4 months away from launching our revolutionary cold climate vertical farming system that would transform food security across northern Canada and beyond. But my family didn't know any of that. To them, I worked in agriculture tech, whatever that meant. Something vague and unstable that involved computers and plants. It started when I was 22, fresh out of University of Waterloo, with degrees in agricultural science and software engineering. 6 companies had made me offers ranging from $95,000 to $130,000. I chose a tiny agricultural startup in Kitchener instead. Salary, $58,000. Equity, 3.5%. My family was appalled. You're wasting your education, Dad said at Sunday dinner. He was a procurement manager for a hospital supply company, pulling in $125,000 annually. Stable. Respectable. Pension plan. Waterloo graduates don't work at startups, Mom added. She was a high school vice principal. Together, they cleared about $195,000 a year. They owned their house in Mississauga outright, had RRSPs, did everything the Canadian way. Amber had graduated from Western 2 years before me with a law degree. She'd landed an associate position at a mid-sized firm in Oakville. Started at $85,000. By the time I graduated, she was making $102,000 as a senior associate. Your cousin has benefits, Mom reminded me constantly. Full health coverage, dental, pension matching. What do you have? I had equity in a company nobody had heard of. Stock options that might never be worth anything. 14-hour days in a converted warehouse that smelled like soil and electricity. Craft dinner 4 nights a week because I was saving every dollar. But I believed in what we were building. Dr. Priya Lahari, our founder, had grown up in Iqaluit watching her community struggle with food insecurity. Fresh vegetables that cost $28 for a head of lettuce, if you could get them at all. She'd spent 6 years developing a vertical farming system specifically designed for Arctic and subarctic climates. Solar-powered LED arrays that mimicked perfect growing conditions. Hydroponic systems that used 95% less water than traditional farming. The technology was brilliant even if the execution was chaotic. 3 years later, that startup was acquired by a larger agricultural technology company for $240 million. My 3.5% became $5.2 million after taxes. I was 25 years old. I didn't tell my family about the acquisition. They knew I'd changed jobs, but they assumed it was just another lateral move in my directionless career. Amber had just made junior associate. Salary, $115,000. Mom organized a dinner party. Invited 42 relatives. I sent my congratulations via text. I used my acquisition money to start Arctic Bloom with 3 former colleagues. We'd identified a critical problem. Northern Canadian communities paid astronomical prices for fresh produce that often arrived spoiled after traveling thousands of kilometers. We built modular farming units that could operate in temperatures down to -40, AI-powered systems that optimized growing conditions for over 200 crop varieties. Our prototype units in Yellowknife and Whitehorse were producing fresh lettuce, tomatoes, and herbs year-round at a fraction of the cost of imported produce. We started in my apartment in Kitchener, 4 founders running on 4 hours of sleep and Tim Hortons coffee. 2 years later, we had Health Canada approval for our first commercial units. 4 years later, we had contracts with 73 communities across Nunavut, Northwest Territories, Yukon, and Northern Ontario. 6 years later, we had 347 employees, $215 million in annual revenue, and venture capital firms competing to lead our Series C round. But at family dinners, when someone asked what I did, I said, I work in agriculture tech, and my family would nod politely before shifting the conversation to something more interesting, like Mason's new role as Senior Operations Coordinator at a logistics company, or Amber's latest achievement, Junior Partner at 29. Salary, $165,000. The gathering I missed turned out exactly as I'd predicted. My younger sister Emma sent me photos afterward. Amber standing in my parents' backyard holding a champagne flute, making an announcement. She'd been promoted to junior partner. First person in our extended family to break $160,000. We're so incredibly proud, Mom said in the photo, arm around Amber's shoulders. Dad raised his glass. To our brilliant niece who proves hard work pays off. Mason posted on Instagram. Family excellence on display. Some of us are out here making moves. The caption felt pointed. I liked the photo and went back to work. 4 weeks later, another family gathering. Saturday at 3 p.m. I could actually attend this time. A crisis call with our CFO about supply chain issues had wrapped up early that morning. I arrived 20 minutes late. Traffic on the 401 had been brutal. I walked into my parents' house wearing jeans and a hoodie. Amber was in business casual, tailored blazer, pressed slacks, the kind of outfit that screamed, I'm important even on a Saturday. Look who decided to grace us with her presence, she said when I entered the kitchen. Sorry, traffic. From where? Don't you work from home half the time? I had a meeting this morning. She raised her eyebrows. On Saturday? Must be nice to have such flexible hours. Aunt Patricia called everyone to the dining room. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the same meal Mom had been making for 20 years. We sat down, Dad said grace. We ate. So, Riley, Mason said, after 15 minutes of small talk about the Leafs' latest disaster. What exactly do you do day to day? Like, walk me through a typical workday. I'd been asked this question maybe 20 times over the years. My answer was always the same. I work on agricultural monitoring systems, hardware and software integration, data analysis for crop optimization. That sounds very technical, Mom said in that tone that meant she had no idea what I was talking about and wasn't particularly interested in finding out. It is, I said. Do you manage a team? Mason asked. I managed 347 employees across 6 provinces and 3 territories. I had 9 direct reports, including our CTO, CFO, COO, and VP of Community Relations. A few people, I said. A few? Amber laughed. That's adorable. I have 12 associates under me now, plus 2 paralegals, full file responsibility. My billable hours target is 1,900 annually. It's intense. That sounds demanding, I said, and I meant it. Amber worked hard. She'd earned her success. What's your budget for your department? Mason asked. I didn't work with departmental budgets. I approved them. Our operating budget for the year was $187 million. I don't really deal with budgets directly, I said, which was technically true. So you're more on the technical side, Dad said, Not really on the management track. Something like that, I said. Amber sipped her wine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being an individual contributor, Riley. Not everyone is cut out for leadership roles. It takes a specific skill set. I cut my chicken and said nothing. How much are you making these days? Mason asked. If you don't mind me asking, I'm just curious what the tech world pays for that kind of work. I did mind, but the question hung there like smoke. Enough to be comfortable, I said. My base salary was $340,000 plus equity plus performance bonuses. My net worth was approximately $68 million between my acquisition windfall, my Arctic Bloom equity, and diversified investments. But they weren't asking for specifics, and I wasn't offering them. She probably pulls in what, maybe $110,000? $120,000? Amber guessed. Tech jobs pay decently, but without management responsibility or partnership track, there's definitely a ceiling. I'm doing fine, I said. Well, I'm just thrilled that someone in this family has finally broken into the serious income bracket, Mom said, beaming at Amber. Your father and I never quite got there, even combined. 6 figures is a huge milestone. Junior partner at 29, Dad agreed. That's exceptional, Amber. You should be very proud. I've worked incredibly hard, Amber said. It shows, I said quietly. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Coffee and butter tarts. Mom brought out her iPad, scrolling through photos of Amber's new condo in Oakville. Her partnership celebration dinner. Her acceptance speech at the firm. Do you have any photos from work, Riley? Mom asked. What does your office look like? It's nice, I said. Pretty standard tech office space. Open concept? Mason asked. I've heard tech companies love that. Seems distracting, though. We have a mix, I said. Private offices for senior leadership, collaborative spaces for teams. Do you have your own office? Amber asked. I do. That's surprising for someone at the individual contributor level, she said. Must be a nice perk, though. I had a corner office on the 7th floor of our headquarters building in downtown Toronto. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Ontario. My name on the door, on the directory, on the building's main sign outside. Riley Nakamura, CEO and co-founder. But they weren't asking, and I wasn't telling. The email arrived 7 weeks later. Northern AgTech Summit. Vancouver Convention Center. April 22nd through 24th. 3 days of keynotes, panel discussions, and networking. The premier event for Canadian agricultural technology innovation and Arctic food security initiatives. My assistant forwarded it with a note. You're confirmed for the opening keynote April 23rd at 10 a.m. They're projecting 2,500 attendees this year. I'd spoken at NAS twice before. Once as a panelist 3 years ago. Once as a keynote speaker 2 years ago. This year, they wanted me to deliver the opening address for the entire conference. The theme, Revolutionizing Northern Food Security Through Innovation. My presentation was already drafted. 48 minutes on how Arctic Bloom had reduced food costs in participating northern communities by an average of 61%. How our systems had created 412 jobs in communities with chronic unemployment. How we'd provided fresh, nutritious produce to 89,000 people who previously had limited access. I confirmed my attendance. 3 weeks before the conference, the family WhatsApp group lit up again. Amber. Guess what? My firm is sending me to the Northern AgTech Summit in Vancouver. All expenses paid. This is massive for my career. Mom, that's wonderful. What's that conference about? Amber. Northern AgTech Summit. Only the most important agricultural technology conference in Canada. Major executives, industry leaders, government officials, huge networking opportunity. I'm going as part of our corporate team to explore new clients in the ag sector. Mason. Fancy. Will you meet anyone famous? Amber. Definitely possible. Last year, the keynote was someone from McCain Foods. This year, I heard it's the CEO from some billion-dollar startup. These people are on a completely different level. My phone buzzed in my hand. I stared at the screen. Amber was going to NAS. She'd be in the audience for my keynote. I could have said something right then. Could have typed, "Actually, that's my conference. I'm the keynote speaker." Instead, I typed, "That's great. Enjoy the trip." Amber, thanks. Wish Riley cared about our achievements as much as we care about. Whatever it is, she does. Didn't even respond. I looked at my previous message sent literally 8 seconds earlier. I put my phone down and returned to reviewing our Q1 financial statements. April 23rd arrived rainy and gray. Very Vancouver. I flew in the night before, stayed at the conference hotel, the Fairmont waterfront. My suite was on the 21st floor with a harbor view. The conference organizers had sent a welcome package. Local chocolates, a bottle of British Columbia wine, a handwritten note. "Thank you for inspiring innovation across Canada's north." I ordered room service and reviewed my slides one final time. 2,500 people, including my cousin who thought I was a mid-level tech worker making maybe $120,000 with no management experience and no real career trajectory. I thought about texting her, meeting for coffee, explaining before she found out in front of everyone. But something stopped me. Maybe it was years of agriculture, tech isn't a real career comments. Maybe it was the constant comparisons to her serious professional job. Maybe it was the assumption that I was a technical worker who couldn't handle leadership. Or maybe I was just tired of justifying myself to people who'd already written my story without ever asking for my version. I went to sleep at midnight. Woke at 6:30 a.m. Shower, hair, makeup. I put on a charcoal suit. Expensive, perfectly tailored. The kind you wear when you're about to address 2,500 people about how your company is transforming food security for Canada's most vulnerable communities. At 8 a.m., I went downstairs. The main ballroom was enormous. Rows of chairs extending into darkness. A stage with a 30-foot screen. Cameras on mechanical arms. Professional lighting rigs. Sound techs running checks. "Miss Nakamura." The conference director rushed over. "We're so excited to have you opening for us. Your green room is ready. Can we get you anything?" "I'm good, thanks. We'll start seating at 9:15. Your introduction begins at 9:58. You'll take the stage at 10. Does that work?" "Perfect." I went to the green room, private space backstage. Leather furniture, coffee station, monitor showing the ballroom filling up. At 9:22, people started streaming in. Hundreds of them. Conference badges, business suits, laptops and tablets. They found their seats, networked, checked phones. At 9:43, I saw her. Row 11, seat 18. Burgundy blazer, hair in a professional updo, confidence radiating even from a distance. She was with 6 colleagues, all wearing matching firm badges. She was laughing, animated, clearly excited to be there. She had absolutely no idea. My assistant knocked on the door. "5 minutes, Miss Nakamura." I stood, smoothed my jacket, checked my reflection one last time. The conference director appeared. "Ready when you are." He walked me to the stage entrance. The lights were dimming. The screen showed the NAS logo, snow-capped mountains, and fields of green. A voice came through the speakers. "Good morning, and welcome to the Northern AgTech Summit. We have an extraordinary program ahead of you over the next 3 days. To open our conference, we're honored to welcome a leader who has fundamentally transformed food security and economic opportunity in Canada's north." I watched from backstage as my photo appeared on screen. Professional headshot. Below it, Riley Nakamura, CEO and co-founder, Arctic Bloom Technologies. After earning dual degrees from the University of Waterloo in agricultural science and software engineering, Riley Nakamura co-founded Arctic Bloom Technologies 8 years ago with a revolutionary vision. What if northern communities could grow their own fresh produce year-round, regardless of climate? I saw Amber in row 11. She was looking at the screen, then at her program, then back at the screen. Her mouth opened slightly. Today, Arctic Bloom's modular farming systems operate in 73 communities across Canada's north. Their AI-powered vertical farms have reduced food costs by an average of 61%, created over 400 jobs in communities with chronic unemployment, and provided fresh, nutritious produce to more than 89,000 Canadians who previously had limited access. Amber turned to the colleague beside her, pointed at the screen, pointed at her program. Her colleague pulled out her phone and started typing, probably Googling my name. Last month, Arctic Bloom Technologies closed their Series C funding round with a post-money valuation of $2.1 billion. Under Riley's leadership, the company has grown to nearly 350 employees and $215 million in annual revenue. She's been named to the Globe and Mail's Top 40 Under 40, Maclean's Most Innovative Canadians, and received the Governor General's Innovation Award. The colleague showed Amber her phone screen. Amber's face went completely white. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Riley Nakamura, CEO of Arctic Bloom Technologies. The applause started. I walked out. The lights were bright. The audience was massive. Camera flashes made individual faces hard to distinguish, but I could see row 11. Amber was standing. Everyone was standing, 2,500 people on their feet, applauding. Amber's face looked like she'd seen a ghost. Absolutely colorless. Her hands were frozen mid-clap, barely moving. I reached the podium. The applause continued. 30 seconds. 45 seconds. I smiled, nodded, raised my hand in acknowledgement. Finally, the room settled. People sat. I looked at row 11. Amber sat slowly, mechanically, like someone had pushed her into her chair. I began. 8 years ago, my co-founders and I were sitting in my apartment in Kitchener, eating our 5th order of pizza that week, talking about a problem that kept us awake at night. In Iqaluit, a head of lettuce costs $28. In Yellowknife, fresh tomatoes are $17 a pound. In many communities across Canada's north, fresh produce simply isn't available at any price. And when it is available, it's traveled thousands of kilometers. It's often spoiled, and the prices make it inaccessible to the families who need it most. I spoke for 46 minutes. I told them about Dr. Lahari growing up in Iqaluit, watching her mother choose between heating their home and buying fresh vegetables, about the nutritional deficiencies plaguing northern communities, about the environmental cost of shipping produce across vast distances. I showed them data, graphs, statistics. Communities using Arctic Bloom systems saw food costs drop by an average of 61%. Nutritional health markers improved by 34%. Youth engagement in agriculture increased by 127%. Local employment in participating communities rose by an average of 18 jobs per installation. I told them about Margaret Tikovic, a grandmother in Cambridge Bay, who now grows fresh herbs year-round in the community center's Arctic Bloom unit. She teaches traditional cooking classes, using produce that would have cost $400 to import, but now costs $47 to grow locally. I told them about James Komaksiut, a 19-year-old in Kugluktuk, who got his first job maintaining the town's Arctic Bloom system. He's now studying agricultural technology at Nunavut Arctic College, planning to bring more food security solutions to his region. 412 jobs like that. 89,000 people with access to fresh food. 73 communities building food sovereignty. The audience was silent, listening. I wrapped up with our vision for the future, expanding into every northern community that wants us, adapting our technology for other cold climate regions globally, training the next generation of northern agricultural innovators. We started Arctic Bloom because we believed something simple. Technology should serve communities, innovation should reduce inequality, and every Canadian, regardless of where they live, deserves access to fresh, healthy, affordable food. That's not just good business, it's justice. I paused. Thank you. The applause was immediate and thunderous. Everyone stood again. I looked at row 11. Amber was standing, but she wasn't clapping. She was just staring at me, frozen. Her colleagues were applauding enthusiastically. The woman next to her leaned over, said something. Amber nodded but didn't respond. The conference director returned to the stage. Thank you, Riley. We have time for questions. Hands shot up across the ballroom. 22 minutes of Q&A. Questions about our technology, our expansion strategy, our community partnerships, our approach to Indigenous consultation and benefit sharing. A man in row 17 stood. Miss Nakamura, Arctic Bloom is clearly positioned for significant growth. Are you considering going public? We're exploring all strategic options, I said carefully. Right now, our focus is on serving communities and proving our model. When the time is right for an IPO, we'll make that decision based on what best serves our mission and our community partners. More questions, more answers. Finally, the conference director wrapped up. Let's give Riley Nakamura one more round of applause. They stood again. I waved, smiled, walked off stage. Backstage, the conference director was ecstatic. That was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. You're already trending on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm glad it resonated, I said. The networking reception is at noon. We'd love to have you there. And we have media interviews scheduled at 2:30 if you're available. I'll be at both. My assistant appeared with my phone. 4 messages. 4 from our CFO about media coverage. 3 from our VP of Communications about interview requests. 8 from investors and board members. 9 from the family WhatsApp group. I opened the group chat. Mason. Riley. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company? Mom. Riley. Is this true? Are you really the person who just spoke? Dad. We had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? Emma. Just watched the live stream. Riley. Oh my God. Mason. Amber just sent me a video from the audience. That's definitely you on stage. Mom. Why would you keep this from us? Aunt Patricia. We're so confused. You've been sitting at our dinners letting us talk about our careers while you... Dad. This is a lot to process. There were no messages from Amber. I put my phone away. The networking reception was in the exhibition hall. Hundreds of people, vendor booths, cocktail tables. I was immediately surrounded. Miss Nakamura, I'm from AgTech Canada. Could we schedule an interview? Riley, our community in Nunavut would love to discuss partnership possibilities. I've been following Arctic Bloom for 3 years. Your keynote was inspiring. I worked the room, smiled, shook hands, exchanged contacts, had the same conversation 47 times. At 12:53, I saw Amber. She was standing near the Arctic Bloom booth. Our marketing team had set up a display. Photos of our systems, screens showing our interface, testimonials from community leaders. She was reading a testimonial from a community elder in Joa Haven. I walked over. Hi, Amber. She turned. Her face was still pale. Riley. Her voice was flat. So. Now you know what I do. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. 2.1 billion at last valuation, I said. She blinked. And you never mentioned this. Not once. Not at any family dinner. Not when Dad asked about your job. Not when Mason asked about your budget. I did mention it, I said calmly. I said I work in agriculture tech. You said you work in agriculture tech. Not that you founded and run an agriculture tech company worth over $2 billion. Not that you're... She gestured at the booth, the conference, everything. This, you never asked, I said. Her face flushed. I never asked? Riley, we talked about careers constantly. You sat there while we discussed our jobs, our salaries, our achievements, while I went on about managing 12 associates. She stopped. While you assumed I was some mid-level technical worker, making $120,000 with no real responsibilities, I finished. People were starting to look. I lowered my voice. Amber, every time I tried to talk about my work, someone changed the subject. Every time anyone asked what I did, you'd jump in with that tone. Agriculture tech, like it was code for unemployed. Like it wasn't a real career because you didn't understand it. Because I didn't know. Her voice cracked. If you'd just told us, would you have believed me? I asked quietly. If I'd said at dinner, actually, I'm the CEO of a company worth over $2 billion. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was lying? exaggerating, trying to compete with your junior partnership. She opened her mouth, closed it. I didn't tell you, I said, because I didn't need you to know. My work speaks for itself. My company succeeds or fails based on what we build and who we serve, not on whether my family understands what I do or respects my choices. That's not fair, she whispered. We're your family. You're right, I said. You are. And I love you all. But you spent 8 years making assumptions about my career without ever once asking for actual details. You spent 8 years comparing your achievements to what you thought were my failures. And you never once considered that maybe, just maybe, I was doing okay. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to. I know, I said gently, but it happened anyway. A man in a suit approached. Miss Nakamura, I'm from Loblaws. We'd love to discuss a potential partnership around Northern distribution. Of course, I said. I turned back to Amber. I need to go. We can talk more later if you want. She nodded, said nothing. I walked away to discuss a potential $180 million retail partnership. The rest of the conference blurred together. Panels, meetings, interviews, networking. I shook 300 hands, had 200 conversations, signed 18 NDAs for potential partnerships. Amber and her colleagues attended several sessions. I saw them in the audience during a panel I moderated Friday afternoon on Indigenous partnership models. She didn't approach me. Friday evening, I flew home to Toronto. My phone buzzed during the flight. Family WhatsApp group. Mom. Riley. We'd like to talk. Can you come for dinner Sunday? I stared at the message for a long time. Finally, I typed. I can do Sunday at 5. Sunday dinner was uncomfortable. I arrived exactly on time. Everyone was already there, sitting in the living room, like they were waiting for a funeral to start. We moved to the dining room. No roast chicken this time. Mom had ordered from Baton Rouge, the place we used to go for special occasions. So, Dad started, after we'd all sat down. We've all been talking, and we owe you an apology. I said nothing. We had no idea what you'd accomplished, Mom continued. If we'd known, you would have treated me differently? I asked. Silence. That's exactly the problem, I said quietly. My accomplishments shouldn't determine whether you respect me, whether you take my career seriously, whether you include me in celebrations, whether you believe I know what I'm doing with my life. We always included you, Mason protested. You scheduled Amber's celebration dinner for a day you knew I couldn't make, then told the whole family how disappointed you were that I didn't prioritize family over work. Mason looked away. We didn't understand, Mom said. You were always so vague about your job. I was exactly as detailed as you let me be, I said. Every time I mentioned a project, someone changed the subject. Every time I tried to explain what we were building, you'd talk over me to discuss Amber's latest client win or Mason's promotion. I learned to stay quiet because it was easier than fighting for space in conversations where nobody was actually listening to me. Amber was crying silently. I'm not saying this to hurt anyone, I continued. I'm saying it because it's true. You decided I was the unsuccessful one, the one who made bad choices, the one who needed advice about stability and benefits and pension plans, and you never questioned that narrative, even when I tried to tell you otherwise. We were wrong, Dad said, his voice thick. Completely wrong, and we're sorry. I appreciate that, I said. Can we start over? Mom asked. Can you tell us about your company? Really tell us? So I did. I told them about the startup days in my apartment, about the acquisition that gave me my seed funding, about founding Arctic Bloom, about the years of research and development, about getting Health Canada approvals, about the first community installation in Iqaluit, about scaling across the north, about the Series C round and the valuation, about our expansion plans. I told them about the communities we serve, about Margaret teaching her granddaughter to grow herbs, about James getting his first job and finding his career path, about the nutrition programs using our produce, about the jobs we've created in places with 40% unemployment. They listened. Actually listened. When I finished, Mason said quietly, I'm sorry I made that comment about priorities. I'm sorry I assumed you were just a technical worker, Amber whispered. I'm sorry I kept bragging about my salary when you were making. What are you making? More than I need, I said simply. Are you a millionaire? Dad asked. Yes. How much of a millionaire? I hesitated. Does it matter? I guess not, he admitted. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Amber spoke. My colleagues at the conference wouldn't stop talking about you. About your keynote, about Arctic Bloom, about the impact you're having. My managing partner asked me 4 times if I could introduce him to you. I had to admit I didn't actually know what your company did. I didn't even know you had a company. You can introduce him, I said. If you want. Really? Of course. You're my cousin. Your family. She started crying again. I was so awful to you. At every dinner, every gathering, the way I talked about my career like it was so much more important than yours. You weren't awful, I said. You just didn't know. And I didn't help by staying quiet. I should have known, she said. I should have asked real questions instead of making assumptions. Yeah, I said gently. You should have. 4 months later, Amber called me. Riley, do you have time to talk? Sure. What's up? I'm thinking about leaving the firm. I sat up straighter. Really? Why? Because I realized something at that conference. I've been so obsessed with climbing the partnership ladder that I never stopped to think about whether I actually want to be a partner, whether law is even what I want to do long term. I've been chasing the promotion, the salary, the prestige, but I don't know if I'm chasing the right things. What do you want to do? I don't know yet, she admitted. But I want to figure it out, and I want to do it without comparing myself to you or Mason or anyone else. I want to build something that matters to me, even if it doesn't look successful to other people. That takes courage, I said. I learned from watching you, she said. Will you help me? Not with money or connections, just advice, perspective. Someone to talk to who understands choosing the unconventional path. Anytime, I said. I'm here. We talked for over an hour. About her skills, her passions, her dreams. Things we'd never discussed before, because we'd been too busy comparing instead of connecting. When we hung up, I realized something important. The standing ovation at the conference had felt good. The validation, the recognition, watching my family's faces as they realized who I actually was. But this conversation mattered more. Not because Amber finally respected my success, but because we were finally talking to each other as real people, not as competitors in some imaginary race. 7 months after NAS, Arctic Bloom announced our Series D round, $420 million. Valuation, $3.8 billion. The press release went out on a Tuesday morning. Within an hour, the family WhatsApp lit up. Mom, saw the news. Congratulations, sweetheart. Dad, so incredibly proud of you. Mason. Holy shit, Rye. $3.8 billion? Emma, you're amazing. Just, wow. And then Amber. Not surprised at all. You're changing the world. Love you. I smiled and typed back. Thanks, everyone. Excited for what's next. Because that was the thing about success. Real success wasn't about the validation or the revenge or proving people wrong. It wasn't about standing ovations or press releases or billion-dollar valuations. It was about building something that mattered, creating jobs in communities that needed them, providing food security to people who deserved it, solving problems that actually affected real lives. The rest was just noise. My family understood that now. Finally. And that made all the difference. 2 years later, Arctic Bloom went public. IPO day. Opening bell on the Toronto Stock Exchange at $58 per share. By close, we were at $84. Market cap, $11.2 billion. My family flew to Toronto for the ceremony. They stood with me at the exchange, wore Arctic Bloom t-shirts, smiled for cameras. When I rang the bell, they cheered louder than anyone. Afterward, we went to dinner at Canoe on the 54th floor of the TD Bank Tower. Expensive, celebratory, the kind of restaurant we never went to when I was growing up. This is surreal, Mom said, looking out at the city lights. It's Riley's life, I said gently. You're welcome to visit it, but it's mine. She blinked, then nodded. You're right. I meant to say I'm proud to see you living your dreams. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. Amber raised her glass. To Riley, who never needed us to believe in her, but I'm really glad we finally do. To Riley, everyone echoed. We clinked glasses. I looked around the table at my family. Imperfect, complicated, but mine. Learning. Growing. To second chances, I said quietly. And to asking questions instead of making assumptions. To second chances? They repeated. We drank. And for the first time in years, I felt like we understood each other. Not because they finally grasped what I did or respected my achievements, but because they'd learned something more important. That love should never be conditional on success, and family should never require you to prove your worth. That lesson alone was worth more than any valuation. Because at the end of the day, success isn't measured in billions, or standing ovations, or IPOs. It's measured in the lives you touch, the problems you solve, and whether you stay true to your values even when nobody's watching. Everything else is temporary. But integrity, purpose, and genuine connection with the people who matter, those are the things that last. My family learned that lesson the hard way. I just hope they'll carry it forward. Treat others with less assumption and more curiosity. And remember that everyone's path looks different, and that's exactly how it should be.